needs it. There we go. So two major items for announcement, some of which you'll know and some which may not. But the first is that South Somerset District Council has agreed to take District Online, which is the big brother to Parish Online, and XMAP, which means that come the next few months, they will be rolling out all of their appropriate layers of information to us in South Somerset. And just as a guideline, because I found this to be a fascinating piece of information, Baines, which is the Unity District that buys Parish Online subscriptions for every one of its parishes so that they have no excuse not to use it, they put out 400 lines of data constantly to Parish Online. So if you were having a lack of things to do and couldn't find enough lines of data to pursue, that's all going to change. But South Somerset has got a lot of their people involved. I've been talking with the environmental people. They put out an online newsletter called Get Sussed, which the last one in January had a big article about Parish Online. So that was very nice of them. And they've all the people I've chatted to have been hugely positive. I mean, it's a really bouncing organization at the moment. Possibly helped by the fact that I kept referring to them as being in Taunton until I discovered that, of course, they're in Yeovil. Anyway, possibly even larger news and its eventual impact on us, I think, is the fact that Malcolm finally persuaded Somerset County Council to talk to him and had a 90-minute chat, which I think ended up very positively. The result of which was that they asked for a top 10 list out of the 400 possible, for all they know, that we would like to see data being shared with us. And so the Somerset ALC said they would gladly send out a Survey Monkey if we created it. So we created 50 questions sent in by some of the people around this room. Okay, Jill, thank you. Or Gil, isn't Jill? So we've sent out the Survey Monkey to, I think, every parish in the county. Delighted to tell you that we've had more than 40 answers so far. So that's very positive. I hadn't done more than the little analysis I did of the trial run, where we were fascinated to find that out of the 5 sections that the survey covers, the environmentalists were by far the most interested in seeing layers for them. So we divided up into road traffic and to environmental and to I don't know, a couple of other sections, and the environmental ones were certainly the ones gleaning the highest scores for their items. So we'll see what the big one, which ends on the end at the end of January, will do. But I thought that was tremendous news, Malcolm. Thank you very much. And then finally, that for those of you who don't attend them, the Friday afternoon get-togethers are beginning to have a sizable impact upon geosphere. So Andrew and Malcolm and Chris, you'll be pleased to know that we're having a big discussion with Geosphere tomorrow about the parish boundary link or limit to the public map. So they sort of come up with what the reasons are why they haven't done it so far and how they think they could go forward to meet some of your requests. So that is happening, but I just thought you'd like to know that the banter that we exchange on Friday afternoon does result in things being adjusted up at Geosphere. So unless anybody has any particular questions or points that they want to make, I would love to hand over to Andrew as our guest speaker for this month. I'm sure everybody here knows Andrew down in his fastness in Martock, but he must be one of the original users of Parish Online, I suspect, and certainly one of the more prolific users. And since Martock has just put together or refurbished their neighbourhood plan, he is in a brilliant position to tell us what to do, what not to do, and what particularly to steer clear of. All yours, Andrew. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Graham. Well, yes, the reason why I've used Parish Online for quite a long time is that we needed some way of creating maps for putting in the neighbourhood plan. And so I haven't really been using Parish Online much as an information system, but rather that as a means of drawing nice maps. And I'll go over a few of the more details of those in a moment. But first of all, the neighbourhood plan, we've been doing it now for, I suppose, we've been thinking about it for about 5 years. It got rather delayed to start with because of one of the regular occurrences in the village, which is a big fight on the parish council. So nothing happened for a long time. But when we did start, it was about 4 years ago, and we finished it just before COVID. And then everything was delayed. Actually, we were 2 or 3 days from the end of a consultation period on the 23rd of March. And that all had to be then redone. That whole consultation period, the final consultation had to be redone. And in fact, the neighbourhood plan was finally agreed yesterday. And it's gone out to the parish councillors now for the final process, and it's going through South Somerset at their next executive meeting, I think, which is early March, or the next available executive meeting. So that's where we've got. Now, what the plan is for, I don't know. How many of you actually have a neighbourhood plan? Does anybody have a neighbourhood plan? One. Oh, excellent. What about how many interested in having a plan? A couple, 3. Oh, good, good. Graham, it's no good you talking when your microphone is off. Okay, so what the plan is for and what it's not for, it's actually the 3rd level of planning after the national plan, the NPPF, National Planning Policy Framework, and the local plan, which is the serious one. And what the neighbourhood plan has to do, it has to dovetail perfectly with the local plan. So essentially it takes a local plan policy, like the environment, which says basically that biodiversity is a good thing in the local plan. What you have to do is to explain in the neighbourhood plan exactly what biodiversity means across Martock, and where are the most biodiverse thick places, and what are the important wildlife corridors, and so on. So it's really filling in the fine details of the local plan. And I'll come back, I'll show you a few examples of these as we go on. So will it work? It's supposed to give us a say in planning decisions. We're learning already that won't work unless you have your local planning office, and particularly your local planning officer, on side and willing to use it, and willing to take notice of what you say about planning applications. It also means that you have to have a well-trained parish council to be able to use it. And it also means that your district councillors have to be well-trained to use it. So I'm beginning to think that the final work that I've just finished last week is just the beginning. Another couple of things. If I can take over the screen, Graham, how do I do that? Share screen, is that what I do? And then I have to find my desktop. Share. Okay. Now what I should have done now is I've got 2 desktops on the computer, and I've got you on one, and I've got other things, all the things I'm looking at on the other. Here's the plan. By the way, I see you've got your microphones off. If you want to sort of interrupt anything I say, please do so, and ask any questions. So there's the neighborhood plan. But in addition, what we produced is this thing, which is called Village Design Statement. It's a somewhat old idea, but the thing about Martock is that we do have an awful lot of really fine listed buildings, which we want, and we want anybody who's designing houses for Martock to take note of these buildings, so that we do have this design statement, which gives a lot about the history and the details of particular buildings and particular areas, the council houses and so on. So that was something that we produced in parallel. It doesn't have any particular status as far as planning is concerned. It's just that we refer to it in the neighborhood plan. So that the idea is that if we have an architect who's designing somewhere, this is in the center of the village here, if we're designing something in the center of the village, this is what he needs to, or she or he needs to look at.
Andrew?
Yeah?
I don't know if you've just changed anything, but suddenly, to me, your voice has become all blurry, as if you've got a second microphone working or something.
Oh,
I'm not sure if I'm the only one. It might be my end.
Normal now when I talk?
Not to me.
No, it's same with me as well, Graham.
I wonder what I can do about that.
It might be your bandwidth. With having a few documents open at once, it's restricting your bandwidth.
It should be all right. We've got quite a bit of bandwidth. I updated that recently, but is it still bad?
It's still there, Andrew. You started off perfectly. It's only come in the last couple of minutes.
Oh, not sure what I can do. Well, let's.
Well, carry on then. And it's not that we can't hear you or make out what you're saying. It's just
I've got some more. I wonder if it's because I'm using the computer. Let's get rid of that. And the other document is this one. Again, to produce data which can be used in planning. Where are the biodiverse areas in the village? And what is it about them that's diverse? So there's a lot of material that we're gradually collecting in this manual. But this has an independent existence as well. It's not necessarily tied to the Martock neighborhood plan. We're using it as in an environmental group as well, but it is mentioned in the neighborhood plan. So 3 documents, not 1.
Andrew, would we be able to get copies of your documents? It'd be very useful.
Let me just write that down. Well, I'll send them to Graham.
Thank you.
You can forward them. Yeah. Let me write that down.
That'd be good.
You don't have to have those documents. It's just that we felt that they were useful and there were teams of people who were willing to put them together. Now, the next thing is if we look at why we needed maps. Here's one that we'll start with. The settlement boundary. One or two issues associated with this. First of all, when you draw a map like this, if you're going to get the printing correct, you have to adjust the thickness of the settlement boundary. So it looks pretty horrible at the moment. It's about 4 or 5 points, I think, thick. But when what you print is not necessarily what you see on the screen here. This is important because right at the start, you have to know exactly where the edge of the village is, so that you can recommend that subsequent building goes on within the village before it spreads outside. So measuring the settlement boundary using old maps is useful, because you need to know in some areas where the settlement end is, where the ends of the gardens are. And some of those you can only really see properly on some of the old maps. So that's one example. Once we've done that, we were told very recently by South Somerset that they had in mind in the next few years building in 2 available plots near the village, just outside the settlement boundary, and they wanted those added to our settlement boundary before they would publish this map. So we had to do that, and those were put in. I'm now looking for the. Oh, this is another issue. Huge numbers of layers that you create when you do this work. And how do you name them? How do you group them together and so on, so that they don't get lost? And I'm now getting to the stage where I find it very difficult to find these layers. So I'm now looking at a recent one, which will be down at the bottom, which I'm going to add to the top of this, which is local plan review housing. And if I press on that, get these 2 additional places where South Somerset would like to see us build about 150 houses in the next 10 years. So we have to put that into the settlement boundary as well, but not surrounded by red, but with an additional colour. And here's another thing: our consultant wanted to be able to see the blue all the way around there, as well as the red. But you try drawing 2 lines very close to each other, so that it comes out absolutely perfect when you print the map out. It's really very difficult. These lines are actually quite far apart. There, that's what they look like. So it's a sort of guesswork drawing these two boundary lines. Okay, that's what I'm trying to work that out now.
Is that any better?
Hugely.
Ah, okay. I'm just using the headset now. What I've got here, you see, is one of these cameras, webcams with a microphone in it and speakers in it, I think. Okay, I'm now using the headphones. Is that okay?
That's brilliant, Andrew. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Let me get rid of these. Okay. Back to settlement boundaries. Having to add things later to the settlement boundary makes Parish Online very useful. But there were some maps which were rather more difficult. This creates a sort of problem that we have to solve somehow. This is a map of landscape sensitivity. It's not done with Parish Online. I tried to copy it into Parish Online, which took me quite a long time to do. But the other problem with Parish Online is that this legend, which you need, Parish Online doesn't handle that very well. And the only way I've found of being able to create a map with a legend in the correct place is using desktop publishing. So I've been using that as well as Parish Online, and I don't think I could have done what I wanted to do without being able to manipulate the maps using desktop publishing afterwards in many cases. So that was one of the problem issues that I met. Let's find another example to show something else. Here we have this issue of finding the map that I want. I want to get rid of that one. And get rid of that one. So we're just down to the map of the parish. And then I'm looking for one BEGS. Here's BEGS2, which I don't think is what I want. That's one of them. And here's BEGS.
We could do with the system to reorder the various layers, couldn't we?
We could really do with that left-hand column.
Yeah.
Is a weakness, I think. We need a system of ordering, we need a system of nesting. Now what I've got here, it's very difficult to see when it's small because these are green spaces in the village and some of them are quite small, and we're mapping them all because we want to give them a degree of protection. And as part of the neighborhood plan legislation, when this passes, these then become legal green spaces. Now you can see a little one there and another one there and a bigger one down here. But if you label these things on Parish Online with these letters, the letters are never in the right place. Now, I don't know whether you've done anything like this, but what I've had to do is to create a second layer with the letters on and make sure those letters are in the right place. So that's a second layer.
Yeah, I had to come to the same solution.
Yeah. There's another interesting point about these, and that is that it's very difficult to see them, green spaces, on this background. So another point is, this was our consultant pointed this out, was that it's a good idea for when you meet issues like that to use the black and white background. Then the spaces are much more visible. And another point that I found out with using Parish Online is that there seems to be a problem associated with this bit here. It seems to be like to put itself there at 50%. And no matter what you do, here's it now, I'm increasing the intensity of the colors on the spaces. It sort of reverts to that 50% by itself, which is, I find a little bit annoying, but you know, and it usually chooses the point to revert to the 50% just before you print it. So I've got green spaces, and then we had an issue with some of these, that they weren't regarded as green spaces, but as spaces which had a degree of protection by virtue of the fact that they were within a conservation area. So that we were required to change the colors of some of them. So that again, they weren't green, change the colors to blue. It's very easy to do it on Parish Online. it looks as though those letters are quite big. But once you print, those letters are much smaller apparently on the background than they are here. So you have to again create things which don't look quite right when you're drawing the map in order to get it right when you print the map. Another issue, and this was the first one where we actually use the map for data storage rather than just drawing maps. With the environment, I've got several layers which I'm clicking now to show different types of natural environment: cultivated land, woodland, water, boundaries, that is hedgerows and so on. Let me switch that one off. That was not. And now we've got various different areas which we have plotted by traveling around the parish and doing quite a lot of research. And if you click on this, we can identify this particular area, and we've got data here for it. It's the old railway line, where it is, what it is, what kind of habitats there are there, and so on. So all these, now this is where we're accumulating data. And if I go to the data extract tool, I'm hoping this will work. I always have problems with this. The reason why I have here again is the problem with all the different layers that are available. Many of these are not mine. I think I'll probably leave this one because I haven't done this for some time, but if we just look at that one and run, we have the data for all these particular areas. What it is. There's some. No, that's not. I should have added. I think this is the wrong. No, let me leave this one. I'm sort of leading you astray on this one. It's a long time since I've been doing this kind of work. And I think that's all I have to say about the use of Parish Online, unless you've got questions on this, of what I've been doing.
Certainly, I've got, I'll take up the points you've raised as sort of technical questions or abilities of Parish Online, because I do think that the number of layers that you've got highlight very clearly the issue one has when you can't put in folders and you can't adjust the order of them at all.
Yeah.
So that's a big one for me.
Yeah.
I'll pass that on tomorrow.
It makes it very difficult, for example, to do anything like this, because I can't remember my code names for all these. I do have it written down somewhere, but it's very difficult to remember.
What happens if you hover the mouse? Does it not come up with a long description?
It does, but then you've got 50 of these, so you've got 50 long descriptions to read.
Yes, yeah, I see that. And hence your use of coding to try and help you remember.
Yeah, I tried to use coding. It's not very good, and I need to revise it. But these are things you learn, starting from scratch.
Andrew, can I ask a question?
Mhm.
On the left-hand side, you've got all the layers.
Yeah.
Just look to the left-hand side of the layers. You've got loads and loads of XMAP.
Oh, that is just my browser history.
Okay.
That just shows me I've been using, and I've you know, because I've dialed up Parish Online, I got all those there. That's
Yeah.
the actual browser history. If you write in Parish Online, you get lots of XMaps.
Yes. Okay.
Mm.
Going back to the letters which you put on the maps being too big, even if you put them on a different layer,
Yeah.
I've found that problem as well. The basic problem is not being able to put a label precisely where you want it.
Yeah.
And on the same layer I'm talking about now, it is a pain. I was doing a permissive path and I had to do exactly the same thing because I wanted to describe various features of the path, and the permissive path and the current illegally used path were so close together I couldn't get the label to show which one it was.
Mm.
There's a similar problem.
Yeah, what I do with the labeling, I put a very small point where I want the label to appear, and then I label the point. So it's on a
Right.
separate layer with just a whole lot of small points there.
Yeah.
And then you can easily move the point if it's in the wrong place.
Yeah, that's good.
Mm.
Out of interest, Andrew, do you find that what's on the screen not coming out the same way on the printer, is that particularly applicable to Parish Online, or do you find that with other applications as well?
Well, I haven't used many others like this. Suppose I'm comparing it with desktop publishing, where in fact what is on the screen is exactly what you're going to print out. But I found that I gradually get used to the you know, the vagaries of the print process on this thing, and I sort of guess where it should be, and usually I'm and how big it should be, and usually I'm reasonably correct, I think.
That's the sort of thing that puts beginners off, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Somebody who is more experienced and determined, should we say, can get round it. But that's not really the point.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't feel the great urge for a case history coming on, and Andrew, do you, so that you can let others see how it is you got around these issues?
I've sort of, my problem, Graham, is that I use Parish Online one week and I find out how to get round an issue. And then I switch it on in the next week and I've forgotten completely how I got around it.
That's why we all need your cases.
So I'm beginning to write down a few notes on how to do these things now. Yeah.
Andrew, could you go back to the map which showed the capital A, capital B, capital C areas in the center of Martok?
Now that was
green parks, yeah.
That was green spaces, wasn't it? Let me
Yep.
have a look at that. ACBEGS. No, it's somewhere up here, I think. You see, this thing doesn't even put itself in alphabetical order, which is a bit annoying. There's no, I don't know how this order is determined. Whoops, I've lost that again. Now we'll have to get rid of the ones at the top. Now we've got the green spaces, and then there's a green space with a number, which I think is that.
Yeah.
Is this what you were wanting?
Yeah, if you zoom in,
Yeah. Whoops.
yeah, that's getting better.
Yeah, I'll just let it read. There we go.
That's fine. Now this suggestion might come to naught, but where you've got K,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you use the annotate tool and then use the label and the arrow point, you could perhaps put K way over to the left-hand side in one of the fields, and then have this arrow pointing to that long green strip.
Yeah.
Would that help in any way?
The problem was that I understand, and maybe Graham will correct me if I'm wrong, that the annotations are not saved as layers.
No.
So you have to sort of redo them almost every time you use the map, or you have to reload the annotation. It's not the same as layers.
No.
Am
That
I
might
right?
work.
I
Labeling in that direction might be okay if you've got just a few, but if you had quite a number, it would make a mess of the map, wouldn't it?
Yeah. If we look at these close up, I think be able to see the circle that I drew. It's a very tiny circle. I think it's actually underneath the K. Probably can't even see it.
So if you go on to the edit tool,
I mean the edit for the layer.
yeah, click on the letter K.
Yeah.
Turn off the parish layer.
Yeah.
Right. Go on to the edit tool. Up a bit. No, over onto the layer.
The pencil.
Well.
The pencil.
Oh,
tool.
the pencil. Yes.
Yeah. Right. There's your.
There's the
your
yes. There's
the
there's the little dot.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you shift that over to the green space, would it jump away at some stage?
I don't think so. I just moved all these to where I wanted it.
Yeah. So save what you've just done.
Yeah. You see, so that that was another problem. Do you see what happens now? The K is underneath
yes.
the green.
Yes.
So it's no good like that. And I learned that. That's another thing I learned through experience. It's not. It's no good having it like that.
But that wouldn't be a problem if it was on the same layer.
No, it wouldn't be a problem. But on the same layer, you've lost complete control over where it's going to be.
Yes, I was thinking moving forward, Andrew, rather than what's there.
Yeah.
How it works at the moment.
Yeah, and the other thing is if you put it on the same layer, sometimes it doesn't print at all, unless you force it to print. You know, there's that force. I'm not quite sure I can lay my hands on it quickly. If we go to the styling, for this, you have to force the labels to print. If you don't force the labels to print, sometimes they don't, because they don't print over each other, or they don't print over other things on the layer. So something stops them actually printing.
Yeah.
Andrew, instead of having a solid color in your case, the green to denote the green spaces.
Yeah.
Don't have a solid color, but have a diagonally
Yeah. Hatching.
shaped tool
Yeah.
to denote that area. And
Yeah.
you might then be able to see the letter A or B or K through the hatching.
Yes. That's one thing that I thought of, but it was too late. I'd
Okay.
done this by then.
Yep.
The
Yeah.
problem there, though, is that you're trying to find a workaround rather than tackling
Yes.
the basic problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what we need Chris to do is tackle the basic problem, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a meeting with Chris tomorrow morning, Andrew. Could you publish this particular layer as a public map so that I can access it and show it to him?
Yeah.
You can do that after the meeting or now.
Okay.
And then
I'll do it after the
send me the
meeting.
link and I'll go over it with Chris tomorrow.
Yeah. It's 2 layers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think there's much he can do about that. Because really, every green space here, the label has to be in a different place. In, you know, these bigger ones, the label could be in the middle, as long as it was on top.
Yes, I was thinking more of Malcolm's solution of saying this is a problem that needs to be addressed with a rethink, and that he needs to rethink what tools he gives us to manipulate labels with.
Yeah.
I think he wants to be, rather than just sort of it being left justified or right justified, I think he wants to say, you want to be able to say where you want it to go.
Yeah. The problem with that, Graham, is that you want it different for each space.
Yeah, so suppose you use the Eastings and the Northings, for instance, and then you can do it wherever you like for whatever label.
So you specify for J, label J. Yeah, okay.
When you're specifying an area, you're actually drawing an area in a particular place. What's to stop you putting a letter in a specific place? And then it gets over the whole problem.
Well, except that often you want to avoid the label going over the top of something else. For example, here.
No, I think you're missing my point, Andrew.
Yeah.
You've got round it by putting your labels on a different layer. I'm going back to the thing. Right, let's have it on the same layer. If you're drawing around an area, you can use the mouse to draw around an area. So you're positioning your area where you want it to be.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, why can't you do the same with a letter or a label? You actually create the label in the position you want it to be on the same layer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know whether I explained that very well.
Yeah. No, I agree, but it would be different for every item on the layer. That's the problem. And
but if it's a movable thing, it doesn't matter. Because you will be in control of where you position it.
Oh, I see what you mean. So that I would just grab that letter A and move it somewhere else to where I want it.
Or possibly, yeah.
Of course, that's what I'm doing, but it happens to be on a different layer. It's the little spot.
Yes, you've actually figured out, and good for you, a workaround. What I'm saying is, it shouldn't really be a workaround. This should be a basic.
Yeah.
On the same layer. Because it's this sort of thing that's going to put particularly non-computerized people off.
Yeah.
Agreed.
We will always find a way around it. But, if something like this is a real problem, then it's going to put people off. And that's not a good thing.
Chris's first suggestion was about an arrow and the letter. I think that would probably need some sort of workaround too,
Yeah.
so that you could use that for some of your places like J. Probably, I think that would work if you had it up in the field with a big arrow going down.
Yeah.
Better.
The advantage of an arrow in a small place like that, that's a tiny little playground, is that you can't see it.
Yeah.
And an arrow would actually, if an arrow was up here, you could make it more visible. Particularly as, you know, Martock is a long, thin village, and when I print these things out, the scale is really quite small.
And if you had a lot of arrows, you'd have a mess of your map, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
We recently put together some parish walks, and we had the line of the walk itself with guidance points all the way through with arrows and dots, and we ended up doing them all on annotation layers rather than permanent layers, mainly because when you go ahead and print them, all the dots and the lines and the arrows start jumping around. So what you see on the screen is not what gets printed. So we literally got to the point where we would place a point, print it, see if it's in the right point, and then go back and change it each time. It was quite time consuming.
That needs some work, I'm sure. I had the same problem with my progressive pass.
Andrew, at the beginning of your talk, you mentioned something about the boundary line, the blue one going round Martock. And did you say that you could adjust the thickness of that line? Because I tried to do that and I couldn't make any alterations.
Not this one. It was the boundary that went around the edge of the built area.
Yes, okay.
Which is necessary to define as part of your neighborhood plan.
Yeah, okay.
Settlement boundary.
Yep.
Andrew, just on that boundary issue, when SSDC said you had to include the two possible places, it's my understanding that a neighbourhood plan is a legally binding document once it's adopted by SSDC and everybody else.
Yeah.
So if those plots aren't built on subsequently, could you do an amendment to have them removed? Because obviously it's going forward, this may end up being a definitive map for Martock.
Yeah, I'm sure that's why they're a different color and everything. This was part of the sort of negotiations with SSDC at the last consultation, where their planning people, who I think are very good, incidentally, their planning professionals, put forward three or four things that they would like to see us include, because they were definitely going to be in the revised plan. It's all, you know, these areas for building houses are already pretty well set in stone or brick. So they suggested that we should put it in, and then we would not have to revise our plan in 2022 when they produced the new local plan. And although we didn't like putting in areas where we hadn't sort of got village approval for building houses there, it was basically a part of a quid pro quo deal at the end at the end of the process with the South Somerset that we put them in. And in fact, they are in areas where development will be least obtrusive in the village.
Quite interesting to hear you say that, because we're going through an inquiry at the moment into Mendip District Council's local plan part 2.
Yeah.
And it's become a big antagonistic point, should we say. And my understanding was, if it's not already in the local plan, they can't insist on you putting it in, because it might go before an inquiry, as ours has, and get turned down. So who are they to tell you what to put in your neighbourhood plan? It seems wrong to me.
We that was our response to the South Somerset suggestion, that it was up to us, not them, and it wasn't in the local plan had not yet come. The revised local plan had not yet come into operation, and so we gave that response. It went to the external assessor, and her view, and I think it's the correct view, is that this is very likely, almost certainly, to be part of the local plan when it comes out in 2022. If it's not included, your plan will be pretty well dead in the water very soon, your neighborhood plan. So they said, in anticipation of this coming out in the local plan, it's a good idea that it should go in the neighborhood plan, and then you've got a neighborhood plan which has a rather longer lifespan.
And what happens if 400 of your inhabitants actually object to it?
That's our worry.
We're live on this situation, have been for the last 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And it's no matter which way round you do it, there's a likelihood you're going to be wrong.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And
I think it's wrong for South Somerset to assume that it will get approved in the local plan.
Yeah.
I think that is most definitely wrong. And
yeah.
Certainly if it had it, well, it's happened in Mendip, and we had 420 objections, I think it was. And it forced the inspector to have an extended inquiry.
No, I think you're right. But again, we didn't put it in. South Somerset wanted it in. The external assessor agreed with South Somerset